fiscally responsible, financial geniuses, monetary magicians. These are things people say about drivers who switch their car insurance to Progressive and save hundreds. Because Progressive offers discounts for paying in full, owning a home, and more. Plus, you can count on their great customer service to help when you need it, so your dollar goes a long way. Visit Progressive.com to see if you could save on car insurance. Progressive Casualty Insurance Company and Affiliates. Potential savings will vary. Not available in all states or situations.
Are you stuck staring at your W-2? Are tax refund worries holding you back? You probably have FOMO, the fear of messing up. The fix? Using TurboTax on Intuit Credit Karma. They find every credit and deduction to help you get every refund dollar you deserve, or your money back. It's time to overcome your fear of messing up and get your taxes done right. Start filing today in the Credit Karma app.
What does it mean to be okay when what looks like success on the outside feels like barely holding it together behind the scenes?
I logged into the newsletter this morning and saw a few more unsubscribes, and I had that moment of panic where I was just like, okay, what's the backup?
Lyz Lenz writes sharp, fearless stories about what it costs to live honestly in a world that expects you to perform success, especially when your identity, beliefs, or body don't fit the mold.
I remember telling another journalist friend about some of my fears and my anxieties. And this person said to me, they're like, oh, but you're Lyz, you'll be fine. And that was a profound moment for me where I was like, oh, you see me as this thing.
In a world that rewards performance of confidence over the reality of struggle, what does it mean to actually be okay?
The economy is broken, but some people are still making it work, and we're here to find out how.
I'm Anna Marie Cox.
And I'm Open Mike Eagle.
And this is Past Due.
You're in Texas still?
Yeah.
I'm born and raised in Chicago.
I love Chicago.
But I live in LA.
I could never live in LA. One, I couldn't afford it.
I mean, I can't either, really.
Speaking of affording LA and California, we like to ask everyone, when's the last time you worried about covering your expenses for the month?
This is 2025. So I would say 2023. 2023? Yeah. So I was married, then I wasn't. Famously wrote a book about it. But when I split up from my ex in 2017, I was broke. I had no money. I had no access to our money. And I maxed out credit cards and I was really, really struggling. And I got a job at my local newspaper, which gave me health insurance for being a single mom of 2 kids, a 3-person household. I was making below the poverty line. So while I was making it, I was also working other jobs. I was selling books, writing freelance articles, and writing marketing copy on the side. And then in 2020, I got fired from that job. And I was like, oh my God, how am I going to pay for my life and my kids? And how am I going to buy juice? We were at buying milk phases of freaking out. And that's when I started my Substack full time, and things got better. But digging my way out of the debt that I accumulated while broke made it really dicey. I was in real, I don't know if I have the cash flow to buy shoes for the kids. So what do we get? What do we not? And how do we, do all of this?
What I'm really curious about is, if you can remember that intensely, how it felt to be struggling and to not be in that place now. I'm really curious, and it might sound like an esoteric California kind of question, but do you feel that in your nervous system? Do you feel the difference in having some measure of stability versus being with the intense challenge of just not knowing where food is going to come from?
I mean, yes, every day. So I also want to preface, I grew up pretty income unstable. My dad is constantly losing and leaving jobs, and I'm one of 8 kids. We would go from my parents buying a nice house to the bank owning the house, foreclosing on the home. They buy a car, and then a year later, the car would be repossessed. And so just a real boom bust sense of money and stability goes away immediately. When I got married, every aspect of finances was controlled. So I was not in control. Coming out, I was back to money doesn't exist. And so being 42 and I only have 2 years of stability under my belt is so terrifying because it feels like I'm going to wake up and lose it every single day. Just to be really honest, we're basically in a recession. And one of the first things that goes is people's newsletter subscriptions. I've been seeing people subscribe to my newsletter at higher rates than ever, but paying subscribers is going down. I've had a couple good months, a couple bad months, but those bad months hit me in my core. I had a really bad month in December because it was a bad month for America. And I was crying. What do I do? I'm stuck here in Iowa. Where can I find a job? I know from looking for jobs in 2020 that a good paying media job doesn't exist, especially if I have to support 2 children. I've got to sorry, I'm anxiety spiraling, but you asked, but I was checking, I logged into the newsletter this morning and saw a few more unsubscribes. And I had that moment of panic where I was just like, okay, what's the backup? Like, what do we do? I'll do anything. I don't care. It's not like I've been living the stable life so long that I don't, know what I can do, but it's also just like, and the world feels so precarious, right?
Right.
I don't have any safety net.
Yeah.
I can't call my parents for money. I have to retire one day or I'm getting older.
What? Retire.
That's like a car thing, right? Like
retire, the French word?
You put a new tire on the car?
Right. No, but what if I get really sick? I'm 42, right? Like, what if I I broke my wrist in 2020 right after I got hired. And then I was like, I can't write. But what if I do that again? What if I fall? What if a dresser falls on me? How am I gonna take care of myself and then not be a burden on my children? I don't have a second income in here. So yeah, when you talk about, do I feel that every day I look at that and it's a fight of anxiety and practicality and the future.
Yeah.
And you got to eat a sandwich somehow.
You're speaking to things that Mike and I have talked about.
Yes.
And one of the reasons why we're here. My thesis is this sense of precarity, especially among people who are public facing, but who isn't public facing these days, right?
Right.
It's difficult to talk about.
Yes.
Because there's so much pressure to put out that front of stability.
Well, and I'm doing better than most.
Yeah. And then when I was doing better than most, I was afraid to talk about it then because I had such a sense of one if I don't want to look too successful, I guess, because I don't want people to, don't like rich people personally. So I don't want people to just like me, which is a funny thing to say. I still need people to give me money, and if I look like I'm doing too good, maybe people won't want to support me. And then the other thing is, though, if I don't look like I'm doing well, then people won't give me work, weirdly.
Yes.
I have to be doing well enough that people will consider hiring me.
Well, I have to project the image of success because you want people to buy into what you're doing. They want to believe, and it's America, right? We are a country of scams. Not that I'm scamming people, but projecting success breeds success. And also I feel too and maybe this is just ingrained childhood trauma. Maybe I'll start making a little list of things to bring back to my therapist that we talk about on this podcast. But I also don't want to be a whiner.
Mhm.
I am so aware of how much worse it could get. And I don't want to sit there and whine to people. I feel very connected to my community that supports me. I have a little Discord where we discourse. And I'm very active in the comments and we do chat threads. So I feel really connected to people. And I know that I have people in my newsletter who are on fixed incomes. I know I have people in there who are laid off federal workers. And I know that I don't want to sit there and whine and be like, because it's so hard to be a writer. It's like, and then in the back of my head, it's like, then get a real job, bitch. Like, so I feel both so scared and so incredibly lucky.
With your community that you've built, do you feel like you have the room to like express like your full expression as a human being? I know sometimes it's difficult if somebody's coming to you because they like your work for one reason or another and they sort of project an image. And it sort of dovetails with what we're saying. Like, you want to maintain this image of success and having everything figured out. But within your community, like on your Discord, if you're struggling with something, do you feel like you have room to express it in that space?
I think there's a dichotomy between the Lyz Lenz, who's the writer, and the Lyz Lenz, who is the person. I remember dealing with this when I got laid off, and I was terrified. And my mental illnesses usually veer more towards the like manic, like anxiety kind of stuff rather than the depressions. But I was like depressed. Like I was like, I can't move off of this couch. And my friends were like, yeah, hun, that's and I was like, no, I physically can't move. They were like, yeah, that's what it's called, weirdo. I remember telling another journalist friend who I know super well about some of my fears and my anxieties. And this person said to me, they're like, oh, but you're Lyz, you'll be fine.
Mm.
And it wasn't particularly profound, but it was a profound moment for me where I was like, oh, you see me as this thing.
Right.
You see me as something else. And I've bumped up into this in other ways too, when I'll talk about body issues, like body anxieties and issues. I think especially now in this political moment, we have these trad wife ideals, reproductive rights, trans bodies being policed, and everything about an Ozempic era issues. All of this creates anxieties around our flesh. I was trying to have a conversation with my audience recently where I was like, yeah, I feel this deep in my core where I worry about, even when I go do a book event, should I wear eyeliner or not? Because it's just like, I want people to listen to me and I'm aging. I was trying to express this to them and they were like, oh, well, you're so good at calling out bullshit. Just call out the bullshit. And I was like, okay. It's like I'm a person too. Like I can call out bullshit and still feel it, I was a little girl whose mom put her on a diet. That's still a person who exists in the world. I think part of my image is projecting this real strong, she can do anything kind of person. So when I'm like, guys, I'm scared, they're like, suck it up.
I mean, you're talking about so many things that resonate with me. One of them is it's akin to the idea of knowing that you're doing better than other people. So not wanting to talk about your struggling, because there's the issue being like a really helpful term that I've learned is straight sized.
Yes.
Which is normal.
Yeah.
Normal. I'm using quotes. Straight sized is like the body type that's acceptable in society on a day-to-day basis. Like I have cellulite and thighs that I think are too big, but that's also because I was raised in America as a female. And so I judge those things. But I'm not fat,
Right.
I'm not also super, super skinny. But I sometimes have trouble talking about my own eating disorder because it doesn't present itself in a way that's intelligible on the outside. And when I talk about body image, sometimes I feel like I don't get this very often, but there is a little bit of like, well, you don't have to worry.
Right.
Right. Like you look fine. And yet my judging of myself, even if I quote unquote look fine to someone else, is part of the structure of oppression.
Yes.
Right?
Yes, and saying somebody is fine, right? Like, you can be really healthy and be fat, and you can be really unhealthy and look fine. Our bodies and our experiences are widely complex, but it does make it really hard to talk about. And I'm not the expert in everything, but when I try to talk about things, I try to talk about them with integrity. And sometimes that means that I stay silent on some
Mhm.
things, but that doesn't mean that I'm not dealing with these anxieties all the time. What's that line between revealing your anxieties as a person and speaking on something with integrity?
Yeah.
And that's why I'm glad I had the group chats where I can just vent all these weird frustrations. I was just at a book festival and had a conversation with my friend at a bar where we vented about money, and it was very healing for me in a lot of ways to just be like, okay, we're both in this same space.
Yeah.
Well, I'm curious in terms of that conversation, what were some of the conclusions y'all came to while y'all were venting about how to do just that?
We just got drunk.
Okay.
Sorry, Mike. Let me
no, I'm
just
just saying,
translate this for you.
something might have emerged that you
I-
carried forward, you know?
I think what emerged that carried forward was just about diversifying revenue streams and how are we, when we look towards the future, what are some creative things we can start doing to save and to diversify? And what does that look like? My friend who I was talking to lives in New York City, and that's very different than where I live in Iowa, where I can perhaps afford a house, but I don't have access to as many jobs and opportunities.
This episode is brought to you by Factor.
Cold days, big goals, absolutely zero interest in cooking? Factor makes healthy eating easy with fully prepared meals designed by dietitians and crafted by chefs.
No planning, no grocery math, no, what did I buy this ingredient for?
I love that Factor has quality, functional ingredients, including lean proteins, colorful veggies, whole food ingredients, and healthy fats.
And there's so much variety. Over 100 rotating meals every week, including the new Muscle Pro meals, if you're doing strength stuff.
And they support your diet, whether it's high protein meals, Mediterranean, whole ingredients, healthy fats, or more. Plus, there are no refined sugars or artificial sweeteners.
I've looked for something like this for a long time, and Factor really is the best.
It's good food that tastes great and is ready in about 2 minutes, always fresh, never frozen, no prep, and no stress. Head to factormeals.com/pastdue50off. That's 50 off. And use code PASSDUE50OFF to get 50% off and free breakfast for a year.
Eat like a pro this month with Factor. New subscribers only, varies by plan, one free breakfast item per box for 1 year while subscription is active.
As a chef, I know flavor doesn't begin in the kitchen. It begins on the land. And Westhome's nature-led Australian Wagyu is a story written in the landscape of Northern Australia. Cooking is storytelling, and Westhome Wagyu carries a story of Northern Australia itself. Raw, powerful, and deeply authentic. It's a testament to the passion and care raised in the rhythm of Northern Australia. I'm Chef Maylin from 88 Club in Los Angeles, and I invite you to visit westhome.com/Maylin to learn more and taste a story only Westhome nature-led Australian Wagyu can tell. That's westholme.com/MEILIN.
I want to talk about you said I'm willing to do anything.
Oh yeah.
If the stability goes away. I have been in a really precarious position since the money ran out from my divorce and the money ran out from my book deal, both of which I did not save in the way that I perhaps could have because I have been successful. And I kind of just assumed, this is terrible. I feel stupid saying it. I assumed more work would come.
Same here.
Like, I just thought, okay, people know who I am. I'm good at this. I've always gotten a job eventually. I've had dry periods, but it's happened. And then it just didn't happen. Right. And so part of me has been like, I've been on LinkedIn, I've been on Indeed, I've tried to hustle. And I don't know about you, but I think if you really had to look for a job, you might be in the same position, which is I can't get a job.
No, I mean, in December, I was talking to my friend about could I go pick up some shifts bartending at her
Oh,
restaurant.
like that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
I've had that suggested to me.
Yeah, I don't live in a place where these jobs really every job I could have in Iowa that is in the media I've had, and I could go teach, but I just want to be realistic. I have taught before that earns no money and is a lot of hours. I make it sound like, oh, I'll just go back to do this. I know these jobs are also very hard to find. When I say I'll do anything, I was thinking about when I first moved here, I worked at a coffee shop because I couldn't find any work. And that was the job that got me through college. And so I was like, should I email my old boss at the coffee shop and see if I could pick up some shifts? Those were the things I was thinking about.
Well, we're being real here.
Yeah.
I've not quite at a place that makes sense for me, I think. And I also don't mean to, I know you'll do anything. I like to think, and that sounded weird. I meant I respect that you have no ego involved here, right? I come from somewhat similar, not quite precarious place. I know the boom bust cycle. My mom was a manic depressive alcoholic, like very familiar with the appearance of privilege and abundance, and then everything being taken away. But when I have had well-meaning friends suggest either teaching or getting a retail job, my decision has been, I don't know if that makes sense for me. I can still get freelance gigs. I still have podcasts. I still have writing workshops that I teach. So that's kind of the puzzle. I feel like I'm willing to go do that work. I think I am. But as a creative, like as a 52-year-old who has to also manage mental health and whatnot, does that make sense for me? It's a privilege of being trapped by the ability to be a creator in some ways. Does that make any sense at all?
My experience of being a creative person is always like, I didn't make money from it for so long.
Right.
That to me, when I think about the jobs I had, I really didn't work full time as a writer until 2020. Probably because even before 2020, I was still doing these other jobs behind the scenes, right? And then that immediately got taken away from me. So when I think of creative work, I think of it as the work I'll always be doing. I don't know if it will always pay. I hear what you're saying, but that's also the privilege of still feeling like I'm able-bodied enough to then physically go do a 6-hour shift or something like that. So, Mike, how are you thinking about this?
At the end of last year, I found myself in the most precarious position I've been in since my divorce. This is divorce pod. This is all the way divorce pod right here. I was in a situation where I had been doing music and started doing a group thing that wasn't quite as fulfilling for me financially as an individual, just because you got to split everything 3 ways. I had a television show that I had sold that was in a really good position to go, but then it didn't happen. And so I was at this point when I was looking 6 months ahead in the future, like, oh, this is it. This is about to be a wrap. And so I got really serious about trying to find a job. I arrived at a similar conclusion that Anna did, in that I am aware now that at least in terms of any currently constructed, honest looking resume for me, I'm unemployable. Because what my resume looks like is someone who does not want to be doing the thing that they're applying to. They want to be doing the thing that they've been doing.
Yeah.
And in this current job market, especially here in LA, where all the studios are shutting down, all the productions are shutting down, and the job market is just full of people who were previously doing something else. It's a lot easier for them to find somebody who was doing something a little bit closer to what it is that I'm applying to. I came away from all of it at different levels, just feeling like it was crushing me to go through this process, because I think that when it came down to it, I was doing this, looking for these jobs because I had to, but not at all because I wanted to. And I've been very used to living the life that I want to live and making money that way. And I recognize the privilege and the ego of all of that. But it's also very emotionally true for me in a way that I wasn't necessarily prepared to deal with when I was looking at these job postings, feeling like I was trying to reconfigure my job history into something that looked nice for them and writing a nice cover letter and never hearing anything back. It was just a lot, felt like a new kind of failure that I could not deal with at all. So I came away from it deciding that I needed to just hustle harder. And, part of that is why we're here today. But I encountered parts of myself that made that process feel incredibly difficult to deal with.
I live in a smaller town, right? So I feel like I have some connections where I could be like, hey, is it okay if I pick up some shifts or something? But there is part of me that still wants to do it. My schedule with my kids isn't consistent enough. If it was, I think I would be doing it right now just to get me out of the house. I like to talk to people. I'm like the only extroverted writer in America. There's 2 of us, and the other one's probably in jail for something awful. But I mean, but yeah, if I had to like apply for something, I would be screwed. Yeah, absolutely. Though I do think there's enough people in my town who don't actually believe that I earn a living that last year, I had somebody on LinkedIn for this company I used to work for, and they're such a lovely company, so I'm not going to name them. They reached out to me, and I'm only nominally on LinkedIn. They reached out to me on LinkedIn. They're like, do you need a job?
Oh, God.
And that my book had just been a New York Times bestseller, and I was like, I'm good. But actually, how much would you pay? And she's like very sweet and told me, and I was like, okay, maybe I could reach back out to her again.
I think Mike put it better than I did. And I think he and I are in similar positions. When I've done the math of trying to get a job at a place I wouldn't mind working, getting a job that's just like scut work, that's not enough money to plug the hole. Right?
Yeah.
And it's an emotional cost. I'm not sure if I could do the work that I'm doing now, which is almost covering what I need.
Okay.
So, and I also think about applying for those jobs, and I'm like, who's going to hire me? Like with my last waitressing job was 30 years ago, right? My last bookstore job was 25 years ago. Then I think about the whole like trying to get a media job, even like a non-fancy media job. I actually applied for a job as an editor at a publication, not like junior, but just a mid-tier editor that I was like, all right, well, it's a job. I would get health insurance. I could still work on my memoir. Podcasting is really fun for me. So I could probably continue doing podcasting. I might not be able to do freelance writing, but I did the math and it seemed to work out. I sent in a cover letter and a resume, and I got a call back from the editor saying, you don't want this job. I saw your resume. Yeah, you don't want this job. You're Anna Marie Cox. Like, what he then said is, you should be writing for us. And I was like, yes, I would love to. And then I pitched some things and they didn't bite. So that was dispiriting.
Yeah.
It's a long, winding road to get to a no.
And that's bullshit. Like, editor knows what the economy is like, and to just not take you seriously like that is really insulting.
I'm going to cry right now thinking about it. If we had coffee, like he said, I got your resume, let's have coffee. And I was like, all right.
Oh, the heart flutters.
And then to not take your pitches after that too, it's just like, and by the way, they'll be like, oh yeah, do this deeply reported piece for 3,000 words and you'll get $600, which is a real thing.
I don't want to reveal the place, but this place in particular, like it's fine. It's good. It's good. They do good work. But still, it was like everyone has a story about why they don't respond and what's happening in their lives, et cetera. Maybe I'm bringing more of a backstory to this than is really there. But at the same time, it was a real experience of what Mike's talking about with trying to put a resume together and applying for something. And then having the experience of being like, all right, well, that's not going to work either. And turning to just, what else can I do? Like, I have this good workshop business that I love. I absolutely adore doing it. It turns out I'm really good at it. I have another friend. His name is Chris Marshall. He is an entrepreneur here in town. He opened the first sober bar in Texas, has just an ideation machine. And he and I were having coffee and he was like, what do you love doing? And I'm like, well, I've taught writing a few times and I love it. He's like, all right, bingo. and like kind of helped me kind of set it up to begin with. And I wouldn't have come to the workshop writing unless I was desperate for money. So that's a gift, but I also kind of, again, now I feel bad about complaining.
Too many Midwesterners in this conversation.
I'm going to be able to pay my mortgage this month. That's not enough, though.
That's why I asked Liz specifically about her nervous system earlier, because that's what I feel like is starting to get to me. I would say that the last time I was really financially comfortable was probably 2023.
Okay.
And it's 2025. That 2 years just really lives in my chest. I feel like I'm getting too comfortable struggling. Like this is not fun. That's just to echo what you're saying. It's not enough, right? It's not enough to just be comfortable for a month. I don't think that's good for us. I don't think that's a good life.
Yeah.
I want to turn this back to a direct question for you, which comes out of what we're talking about, the transformation of trauma into content. Right?
Yeah.
Which is kind of what we're doing right now.
We're doing it.
And I've done that in my work basically since I got sober.
Mm-hmm.
I'm curious because you, of course, Liz, that's part of what your journey as a writer has been, and one of the reasons why your work really resonates with people. How do you feel about turning some really painful parts of your life into content? And whether or not that's a future revenue stream. I mean, I don't like to put it that way, but like,
yeah, I don't.
Our lives become our content.
I mean, there are definitely times when I'm going through something where I'm like, this will be such a good story if I could get out on the other side of it. I am not going to lie to you all, but like we were talking about my divorce and how that turned into my book. When I was going through it, I wasn't like, this is a story. I was going through it and just surviving. And I only knew I had a story when I was, split in 2017. I knew I had a book in 2020 when I saw the world shutting down and women being the social safety net. I was like, oh, it wasn't just me. And that's when I was like, oh, there's something here. And so now I need to go back and revisit that experience and talk about it and put it into this bigger context. When I wrote Godland, I was writing like, here's a religious experience, but also here's deeply reported experiences about religion in the Midwest. And same with Belabored, which is like, yes, I'm talking about the birth that I experienced, but also I'm talking about reproductive rights and reproductive labor in the context of America. I just think our lives are our lives, and the things that people connect to I think that's beautiful. The personal moments are the moments of connection. The reason I bring myself into my work over and over again is because I'm trying to tell people this is why I care. Because I know that in an attention economy, I have to prove over and over again why you should read my stuff. And the reason you should read my stuff is because you should care. These things are the reasons that I care, because they're deeply relatable human experiences. Not all my experiences are deeply relatable or human, but I think about it as not a strength, not like a thing I'm going to exploit. There are times when it's like, damn, I wish I could write about this, but my son said no. And so I got to respect that, because I care more about my relationship with them than I do about any future books, actually. And you said something, Mike, earlier that I've been kind of noodling on, like, is that a good life? Or you both kind of echoed this thing, is that enough for a good life? And I think about that a lot. Like, what is a good life, right? If everything got taken away from me, I feel like growing up a child of trauma, a child of manic depressive parents, a child who's dealt with some really dark stuff. I'm like, if the worst happens, how do I become okay? How do I become okay? And it's interesting that when I think about that question, my answers are less practical and more community based. So I have the kind of relationships in my life where if my worst case scenario is I get cancer, I can't afford those treatments. I'm on the open market health insurance. I've watched close family members, die of cancer, and I got an idea of how much that costs. And so, and then what do I do? Sell my house to pay for things. And then where do I go? Where do I live? Would I have to move in with someone? And I, and all of that relies on, do you have a social network? Do you have friends? Do you have people who can support you when everything is falling apart and you can't do anything to fix it? I should probably be more practical in some of this planning, but I also think that that's what a good life is. One of my dear friends just went through a lot of this. She's an academic and she's been looking for an academic job. For 4 years, she's been looking for an academic job, and her other one was going to end and she wasn't getting any bites. And then she started applying for other jobs too. She was like, okay, maybe I'll go work for the county. Maybe I'll work for public radio, and nothing. Because like you said, Mike, her resume was showing that there's nothing that she's not like she was preparing her whole life for this. And people were just like, nah, we want the 20-year-old who has the degree. And those were some of the conversations she and I were having where she was like, if I'm, so in debt from this PhD and living hand to mouth while my husband finishes his PhD and he doesn't have a job. And now if I can't get one, what do we do? Do we sell the house? Do we move in with my parents? What does a good life look? What does it mean to be okay? What does it mean to be okay? And if you can't fix it with money, although a lot of things can be fixed with money, like what does that then look like? Have I invested enough in my relationships with people to where they would feel okay leaning on me, to where I would also feel okay leaning on them? Like in 2020, my town went through this awful natural disaster. Derecho blew down the town. I lost power for a month. I was doing my day job, newspapering, and then I was going out and delivering meals to neighbors. We actually have to deal with it's like when the apocalypse comes. What does a good life look like when it's all taken away? Do we have those kinds of relationships and communities that mean that we can be okay? And what does that? I don't know. I'm not answering it. I'm just reframing that question because I think it is a powerful question. I truly believe we're entering a recession in America, and we have to look at that all over again. And what does it mean to live and be okay when things are not okay?
When you can't make it to your kid's game, you don't have to miss it. With Game Changer, it feels like you're there watching your kid's game live in crisp HD, following every play in real time. And replaying the moments you'll talk about later with automatic highlight reels. So even when you can't be at the game, your kid still knows you're on the sidelines cheering them on for every big moment. And Game Changer is always free to download. Live the game like never before with Game Changer.
If data management is slowing down your business, you need the Intuit ERP. If one entity is here, and one here, and one here, and one here, you need the Intuit ERP. If scaling your business feels like starting over, you need the Intuit ERP. Intuit Enterprise Suite is the AI-native ERP solution that consolidates, migrates, and automates, all in one place. Learn more at intuit.com/ERP.
If you like this conversation, there is more where that came from. Every episode, we end up with extra stories, tips, and random moments that we save for our Patreon members that are too good not to share.
So if you want to hear more from Lyz Lenz, including the very chaotic, very real story of what it was actually like to hit the New York Times bestseller list, head over to patreon.com/pastdue and subscribe.
And now, back to the show. In these conversations, the idea of community as an important piece of all of this becomes more and more in focus. You've mentioned a lot about, your town and the relationships you have there. I've been to Iowa quite a few times, but I don't know that much about it.
Yeah.
I feel like at different times I get a different understanding of what the overall political landscape is in Iowa, right? Uh, my general sense of it is it was kind of a pretty red state.
Oh, it's
Um,
red.
do you find that there's particular challenges in fostering that community uh, within that political landscape?
Oh, I'll give you a couple different examples where, my kids go to a school that is filled with a lot of very conservative people who are very active in the politics of the state. We are a red state, the only state where Ron DeSantis even stood a chance.
Wow.
We have Trump country, and I report about this. A lot of my job is writing and reporting. When DeSantis was coming through Iowa, I did a piece for Rolling Stone where I followed him around and wrote about his campaign. While I was following him around, some of his campaign volunteers were parents from my kids' school.
Wow.
And I'm like, hey guys, I'd be at the event and they'd be like, trying because they knew I was a journalist and they didn't want to talk to me. It's not like they were like, "Oh, what are you doing here?" We all know, we're not idiots. It's a small enough town, so they'd be just like, "We don't want to talk to you," and I'd be like, "Why not? Why don't you tell me exactly why? Tell me to my face." And so recently, I went to a kids band concert, and I kind of came in a little late because I was doing a thing and it was early because they plan all this stuff while people are supposed to be working. So I came in a little late, sneaking in the back, and this mom, who I've known since my daughter was 5 and she's 14, goes, "Oh, look at you coming in here to a room full of Trump supporters." And I was like, Nancy, her name's not Nancy, but I was like, Nancy, what? Like, I've been coming here for 10 years. Grow up, right? Like, my kid is right there. I just was like, Nancy, shut up. And it was what I said to her. And she was like, and so there are those moments, especially in 2020 when I was still masking. I would go to these school events because my kids are there. And if I don't show up for them, I'm being a bad parent. So I would go masked and these dads would be like, "Oh, you don't have to wear that thing." And I'd be like, "You don't have to be a jerk to me, Roger." I was the class parent last year. I'd be like, "That's some avatar of your anxiety. I am your neighbor." And that is a conversation. I'm actually not Midwestern, but I'm fine with conflict. When I was deeply broke and divorced, the super conservative, very politically active father of one of my friends was the guy who brought me furniture for my house. He knew that I was struggling and brought me furniture and offered me a job. He still reaches out every once in a while to make sure I'm doing okay. And in the derecho, my very conservative neighbor has been mowing his yard this whole time. I don't know why he's still mowing it, but he let me use his generator. So you're asking, is it difficult? Yes. But I also think that, it's also difficult even when I agree with people politically because people are obnoxious as hell. It doesn't matter what their politics are. Being in a village, being in a community is very difficult and requires complicated conversations and negotiations. I co-parent with somebody who loves Donald Trump and his wife. Also, I can't isolate myself from this, even if I wanted to, and I do want to. I would love to be in a bubble. It just requires a lot of I find the best way is just a lot of honesty. But I've also seen in these really intense moments, these same neighbors who I disagree with politically showing up for their neighbors and me in really radical ways. Like in 2020, when I'm out there writing articles, some neighbors are sending me hate mail. Other neighbors are giving me their generator, and they're all Republicans. I lost my job because neighbors called and complained about me, but I also was given meals by neighbors. Iowa is a complex state, and I feel very complicated about it. Some days I'm like, I'm out of here. But then other days, like yesterday, where I was having a day, and my kids, they're teens, and we were dealing with some teen stuff. And my friend just popped over to have dinner with us and gave my kids some advice. She doesn't have children, and she's part of my community in a way where she just was like, hey, I'll pop on over, have some dinner with you guys, and everything will be great. And I was just like, this is complicated. And then days like that where it's like, I don't know if I could replicate that anywhere else. Maybe it can happen in LA, but it's hard.
These are all such lovely points. And Lyz, I appreciate so much you reframing it. Is this enough around community? And also this piece of truth that we don't know where help is going to come from, and it doesn't always follow a political valence. That's been my experience as well here in Texas. And again, part of the largest and longest running mutual aid program in the world, where we sit in church basements once a week. When I've even jokingly talked with my friends from that program about our political differences, and here we are still helping each other, and it's a joke about that sometimes, right?
Yeah.
Sometimes what I get is joking, not going to have a fight about anything, is like, well, government doesn't need to be involved. Here I am helping you. See, we don't need those welfare programs you're so concerned about. And I try to refrain from engaging in that moment because it could get heated, right? Another complication in this discussion about what is enough is, as important as community is, we shouldn't need to rely on that. Does that make sense? Like, we shouldn't need to rely on individual pieces of help.
That's right.
Like,
and also people get left out of community if they can't speak the language, if they don't have the right skin color, if they are queer, if they are. So there's a lot of ways community is harder and people don't show up for people. Right. Like, we need levels, right? We need systems that support us. We need social safety nets. I mean, we are having this conversation because healthcare is unaffordable. Like, if I did not have to pay $450 a month for my health care, this conversation would be, I went without dental care for so long when I was so broke. And now I can finally go back to the dentist. I've had to pay $4,000 worth of fixing my teeth.
Wow.
Because that's how bad they got. Neighbors can't fix that. That's the fault of our system.
Yes.
Right? Like, I can't get my neighbor to come do some dental
Some kind of barter.
Right. Like, I am paying the cost of poverty every day in my teeth. I still have 2 more dental appointments spaced out over the next couple months because we can't do it all in one time. It makes me want to cry when I think about that because it hurts. I've been in a lot of pain, and one of the dentists was like, have you been in a lot of pain? I'm like, I'm 42 and I'm a woman. I'm always in pain. He started to fix some things, and I don't wake up with headaches anymore, which I was like, oh, it's allergies. Oh, it's perimenopause. I was like, no, my teeth were falling out of my head, and I couldn't afford to fix them until this year. So, right, we can get some needs met, and that's great and beautiful, and we should work on those other things. But then the other things, like Liz's teeth, can't be fixed by that. And you were talking earlier about things being content. I've been so embarrassed to talk about my teeth, my poor teeth, that, it's just like that maybe I should more, and maybe I will once this is sorted.
Let's turn this into a PSA for flossing.
Floss all that, because nobody flosses more than somebody who can't afford to go to the dentist.
That is very
That's
true.
Yeah.
I
This is
grind
not
my
about
teeth.
flossing. Yes, and
I grind my
too.
teeth, and I chipped a filling, and I flossed because it became what they call a food trap.
Yes.
When I finally went to the dentist, he was like, you know how lucky you are. Those things, you can develop an infection, and you could have lost part of your jaw.
Wow.
Yeah.
It's more expensive to wait, folks.
Don't have the money.
Yeah.
And that's the thing people put off. So we need it all, right? Because you're right. Sometimes all those things cannot be solved in a church basement, but they are the heated conversations we need to have. Because my teeth thing is the thing that I bring up to people when they say exactly that, and they'll be like, yeah, that's why. And I'm like, you know what? You're right. Like, this is going to solve 40% of the problems. Do you know what the other 60% is? It's when you get cancer and I can't give you those cancer drugs. It's like when my teeth are falling out and you can't do dental surgery on me. Like, those are the things we need. And doesn't it suck that we both have to worry about those things? Honestly, I live in a state, I'm not insulated from these conversations. I have to have these conversations with liberal people. Every blue voter is like on my side about this stuff. I often find that some of the more tense conversations I've had about this are the ones with the people who I was like, oh, wait, I thought you were on my team, but now I have to justify to you these things. Because deep down in our soul, Americans want to believe that Americans of any political ideology bootstrap your way out of literally anything. And if you're struggling, then it just means that you should be trying harder.
Well, let's just all be grateful that your neighbor with the generator is also not trying to give you free dental work.
Bill, no, thank you.
Lyz,
Yes.
thank you so much for being on the show and being very real about everything. I think that these conversations, my hope is transparency around this stuff leads to more community.
These are the conversations I'm having with all my friends. And so I'm so happy that you're putting this out there for the world to listen to, because I think we need better conversations about this. So thank you.
And I appreciate the humor that you managed to find in any of this. I feel like I've been smiling this whole time. We've been talking about the worst feelings. So I just appreciate you being a damn delight throughout
Oh, thank you.
this conversation.
That's the trauma that makes you funny. So I'm like, let's talk about what if I die of cancer and then laugh about it.
It is hysterically funny. Dying of cancer in this economy.
And this, who can afford it? In a recession? I can barely afford blueberries. Get out of here.
One of the most important things about this podcast is plugs without shame. Just like tell us all the different ways. Should there be a variety? If you're diversifying your income streams, as I heard you talk about earlier.
I have a
What you got?
I have a newsletter, which I actually have an assistant editor who I pay, who's an out-of-work journalist. And then I have another editor. So I actually support other people, which is really stressful. And so I have this wonderful newsletter, and we are going to start a podcast. One thing I do in the newsletter is every Friday, I write a dingus of the week where I call out a particular person, usually in politics, who is making our lives just a little worse. And then we make fun of them and we have a good time. We talk about how Jared Kushner looks like a damp paper towel. And why does he always look wet? It's so gross. And so things like that. And so I'm going to turn that into a podcast, and I'm very excited about that. And I'm going to be working on a new book soon. So look for news about that. People should subscribe to the newsletter because it's a good time. We laugh, we cry. We have good
you'll
conversations.
Give her existential dread every time someone unsubscribes.
It's true. I need to be better about that. I need to divest myself from the numbers, but as a type A person, it's really hard. So I'll just continue to be dysfunctional, probably.
Well, you're going to get that past due bump.
There you go.
Oh, yeah.
You're going to get that past due bump.
That's all I have to promote. It's just the newsletter and my forthcoming podcast. And we're going to have fun at the end of the world. That's all we've got.
Yeah. Thank you so much. It's time for our pluggables.
Oh.
What do you got going on?
I'm currently in a tour bus going across America, and hopefully I'm coming by a town near you. I'm opening for the band Future Islands. And if you're not able to do that, then you can just check me out on YouTube and listen to my music. It's on Spotify. It's already in your phone.
And you're coming to Austin.
I am coming to Austin in June. I'm opening up for a band called Ninja Sex Party in Austin and Dallas. That's June 7th and 8th.
All right. And we're actually going to get to meet in person, which is, we actually have met in person.
We have met in person, yeah.
Get to meet in person for the first time in this chapter of our lives.
Exactly. And what do you got going on?
All right. Well, I have a newsletter. You could subscribe at newsletter.annamariecox.com. Also on that website, I have information about the writing workshops that I teach. I have one coming up in August called Camp Slow Burn, which is for people who are interested in maintaining their creative side in this economy, how to burn slow and not burn out. And then there is my other podcast, which is called Space the Nation, and it is about science fiction and politics. And I'm trying to think, and I'm a contributing editor at The New Republic, and you can find my writing there. And it feels like there's more, because it always feels like there's more, but I think that's it for now.
Thanks for listening to Past Due. If you like this episode, make sure to follow or subscribe wherever you get your podcasts, and leave us a review if you got a minute. It really helps people find the show. And join our community over at patreon.com/pastdue. There's plenty of good stuff going on over there.
And while you're at it, we want to hear from you. How are you trying to survive in this economy? What's the most important work you do that no one sees? And how do you keep going when it doesn't pay yet? Send us a voice memo, drop us a note on the Discord, tag us on Blue Sky and at Instagram at Past Due Podcast. And we will share some of your responses in a future episode. Take care.
Past Due is hosted by Anna Marie Cox and Open Mike Eagle. It's produced by Andrew Stephen. You can find more at pastduepodcast.com. Help support the show by joining our Patreon at patreon.com/pastdue. You'll get bonus content, extended interviews, and more.
Stop doom scrolling. Start decoding the tech rewiring your week and your world. The Interface is the BBC's fiercely informed, fast, and funny take on how technology is changing everything.
Hosted by journalists Tom Germain, Karen Howe, and Nikki Wolf, each episode unpacks week by week the unfolding story of how technology is shaping all our futures. No guests, no jargon, just three sharp voices debating the tech news stories that matter. Whether they shook a government, broke the internet, or quietly tipped the balance of power.
As TikTok shifts geopolitics, Trump drives digital shockwaves, Elon Musk expands his space internet empire, and AI reroutes the routines of everyday life. The trio asks, what world are the tech titans building for us? And do we want to live in it?
Find The Interface from the BBC wherever you get your podcasts.
Sometimes it feels like red and blue states are just as divergent as post-World War II East and West Germany. So what can the US learn from German political history in order to create a more perfect union? Find out on the new season of The Future of Our Former Democracy, the Signal Award-winning podcast from More Equitable Democracy and Large Media. Hosted by me, Colin Cole, and Heather Villanueva. It's time to rethink democracy. So follow The Future of Our Former Democracy wherever you get your podcasts.